Gao Peng, after decimating the majority of a dragon ant colony in his latest endeavor, has come to a realization. They love food. This guy's supposed to be a genius in any case. He's managed to gain the allegiance of the remaining dragon ants by bribing them with pet food. This way, he doesn't even need to bother signing blood contracts with them. While they chow down, the treasure-sniffing rat tells Gao Peng that there's still 3 super rare treasures inside the colony. Gao Peng enters the underground area with the rodent leading the way. At one point, they come across a pile of monster corpses in what he can only assume is the colony's storage area. Here, he finds a scroll stuck between the corpses. After opening it up, he sees a map of sorts depicted on it. Based on the symbols it shows, he believes this could be the Death Dragon Valley where he'll have to train the dragon ants. With the white dragon tribe stirring, he can never have too many dragon-suppressing monsters. A week later, Flamey has gone up to King Tyr thanks to some flesh and blood essence pills. Putting that aside, they've arrived at their latest destination. According to the map from the ant colony, they're at the entrance of the mermaid labyrinth. Gao Peng is stumped as to how exactly any mermaids could live here since they're supposed to be half-human, half-fish hybrids. The only thing he can think of is a pond inside the labyrinth. Deciding to find out for himself, he instructs Slicey to go knock on the door. If there's any danger, he's the fastest of them, so he'll be able to get back safely. The second Slicey knocks on the door, it starts creaking open to reveal a pitch-black interior. Gao Peng suddenly feels something dark from within and yells at Slicey to run, which the little guy does at once. From inside, the dust kicked up from the gate sliding open. 2 bright yellow orbs shine with an otherworldly gleam. Across from them, Gao Peng watches as his rodent and dragon ants start turning to stone. He quickly puts 2 and 2 together and realizes what kind of monster is actually here right as a cistern window pops up to confirm it. The creature emerging from the gate right now is a level 62 Emperor tier earthen Medusa, the creature of myth who can petrify anyone with a single look in her eyes and... Oh mama, that is not the kind of monster I was expecting. Luckily for Gao Peng, his connection to Streppy gives him protection against her earth attribute power and allows him to see how hot she is without consequence. Wait, no. I mean, oh screw it. It is what it is. Luckily, it seems the Medusa isn't hostile as she instantly apologizes and shows a peaceful demeanor. She pulls out some of her snake-like hair and hands it to Gao, telling him to place it on the petrified beasts. As soon as he does this, they're all cured and free to skedaddle the heck away. When the Medusa comments on how Gao Peng is very special for being immune to her power, he shoots his shot and asks if she'd like to join him on his journey. He quickly throws in a mention of possibly meeting other Medusas too if she says yes. Internally, he's all but salivating at the prospect of such a powerful ally even if they don't sign a contract. Unfortunately, the snake woman instantly shoots him down and says she has no interest in being around other people. Gao Peng decides to take it in stride though and heads off with his party while promising to come visit her again in the future. After they've left, she goes inside her labyrinth where a whole host of monsters sit in petrified states. She stands before a single stone bird perched on a branch and sinks into her memories of the past. Back when she was just a little child, a violent monster invaded the labyrinth and made her use her powers to protect the place. Unfortunately, all but one of the birds she enjoyed her time around ran away in fear because of this. She quickly cured the single one that got petrified, only for it to accidentally meet her eyes and get petrified again. Not a very bright bird is he. After a couple of repetitions of this, the bird perched atop her head and comforted her. Over the years, the two would stay together as she grew into the woman she is now. As for the bird, it reached the end of its natural life and requested to look into her eyes one final time before passing away. Since then, it has rested in her garden as an eternal companion, one who she misses dearly even now, all these years later. Man, who the hell is chopping onions in here? While moving away from the labyrinth atop Stripey, Goldie comments on how that Medusa lady was actually pretty nice for sacrificing her hair to cure them. Gao Peng admits it's his first time meeting a friendly monster, but they have to respect a person's decision not to join them. Regardless, it's time to head to the next labyrinth. The nearest one on the map appears to have a crab drawing on it. However, because of the mix-up with the last one, Gao Peng wonders if it could actually be an abstract drawing of a spider that he's misinterpreting. Only time will tell. It was not, in fact, a spider. What they're up against in this labyrinth is a level 68 Emperor tier Inferno King Crab. Gao Peng makes a surprised Pikachu face at being wrong about being wrong this time and watches as the crab displays incredible battle skills. Using its claw, it's able to stabilize itself and use its body like a fort. Streppy quickly blocks the attacks and Gao Peng lays out their strategy for dealing with this thing. Dumby and Stripey will stay back while the others all practice their team combat. Flamey is to burn the crap out of Goldie to stack his passive, while Flowery heals him. Meanwhile, Frosty will attack the crab to distract it, and Slicey will back him up by attacking the crab's joints around its legs. Finally, the dragon's slaying chapter and Silly can just watch. Really just called them useless. Frosty puts his all into keeping the crab at bay, leaping all over the place on his ice constructs. Goldie sits in place like the totally deluded weeb he is and spits some ultra cringe lines about how he can barely feel the fire. As that goes on, Frosty can feel himself losing steam since he hasn't fully healed from his previous injuries and calls out to the others to hurry. Enraged at the enemy's refusal to charge at him all at once, the crab unleashes a wave of flames powerful enough to vaporize all of Frosty's ice. Gao Peng is blown away by the power of the crab's element and realizes this is the cause of this world's desert-like state. This ill-tempered crab is the one who scorched this earth to the point of water and nutrients being completely eradicated. Dude's literally the fire demon from Silver the Hedgehog's timeline. On the battlefield, Frosty's ice shield finally gives out against the crab's flames and he gets blown back. Slicey jumps in and takes advantage of the chaos to get some decent hits in, dropping the crab to the ground. Gao Peng is sure the crab's loss of balance will tilt things in their favor, but realizes his error a millisecond later. The beast is using its momentum to launch itself up and fall towards Slicey. Luckily for the little bug beast, Goldie jumps onto the scene at that moment, his passive finally at an acceptable stack. Gao Peng worries over the injured Slicey and Frosty while Goldie takes on the crab himself. Well, he tries to at least. The crab quickly proves to be his superior though and beats the crap out of him. Even as he's getting battered though, Goldie has a smirk on his face and comments that he might not be a threat now, but he will be soon. Sure enough, as the crab keeps demolishing Goldie, it quickly becomes confused as he's just getting bigger and bigger with each hit. More importantly, he's getting stronger. This is proven moments later when Goldie grabs the crab with both fists and proceeds to pile drive it into the ground with enough force to flatten its skull. The battle is over. Goldie has won. Goldie and Flamey end up in one of their usual bickering sessions in the aftermath of the battle with the Inferno Crab. Meanwhile, Gao Peng tells the altar imp to break down said crab's corpse and see if any useful pills can be obtained from it. Sure enough, the imp manages to push out not just 2 or 3 but 6 whole pills. It turns out that the stronger a monster's emotional state and obsession is before being beaten, the more items the altar can turn it into. Gao Peng is immensely grateful after hearing this for the crab's ridiculously short temper. The pills he's gotten from this are a soul essence pill, a meat essence pill, a level 3 strength amplification pill, a level 3 flame resistance pill, and a level 3 flame control pill. Lots of fire stuff. If only he had a fire monster to give them too, a flaming one even. Finally, the 6th pill is one he's never seen before, a flame devourer fruit that's limited to fire-type monsters. Gao Peng chucks it over for Flame to eat without so much as a second thought, and the giant bird collapses in an intense seizure. Goldie panics at his brother's familiar state, but Gao Peng assures him he's fine. This is just the process for awakening a new talent. And so, the group gets to packing up while they wait for Flamey to wake up. Not too long afterwards, the former ostrich awakens, causing Goldie to call out for Gao Peng. He quickly rushes over and opens up Flamey's status window to check what's happened. He's still a level 51 King tier by Fang, but now he also has the Flame Devourer skill, previously belonging to the Inferno Crab. Gao Peng breathes a sigh of relief on seeing the pill worked, but he sees something else that piques his curiosity. The system says that Flamey now walks the path of usurping power. Flamey sees his concerned expression and fearfully asks Gao Peng if something is wrong with him. He realizes his interest has been misinterpreted and reassures Flamey that he's totally fine. It just seems like his new ability has undergone a minor mutation of some sort. Nothing bad though. Flamey admits that despite the increase in his skills, there's actually a voice in the back of his head now that's telling him to follow the path of usurping power. Goldie, being the ever-annoying little sibling that he is, starts mocking Flamey for trying to sound cool. Holy crap pot, meat kettle. Talk about having no self-awareness. As the bird chases Goldie around with flames, Gao Peng turns to Frosty to ask if he knows what this path thing is. The chibi lion tells him that all he knows is it's a life or death battle of some kind. That's when the altar imp decides to speak up and tell them it knows what the path is. According to the imp, it's a battle of sorts for a supreme position. Personally, the imp doesn't really get the appeal of such a position, maybe since it can't die anyways, as the imp keeps talking smack about monsters who wish to have the title of strongest. Flamey and Goldie both take offense to his words. The bird kicks the crap out of his altar, getting an angry response. As he's walking away, Goldie takes his turn kicking the altar's proverbial ass and angers the imp even more. Elsewhere in an unknown dimension, Da Zi awakens from his slumber to see an empty expanse as far as the eye can see. The only thing breaking the monotony of the realms is strange, giant tree with even stranger-looking fruit. Being the glutton that he is though, Da Zi doesn't care how it looks and instantly rushes towards the tasty-smelling stuff. Once he's done eating his heart out and collapses into a food coma, several voices speak out from the void. As they argue over Da Zi's presence here, one particularly authoritative voice claims that this is simply the work of fate. Back in the fog world, Gao Peng and the gang have just arrived near Death Dragon Valley. As they reach a cliff, the dragon ants Gao has befriended start chittering about something smelling good. Just then, a massive crash and roar occurs at the base of the cliff, startling everyone. The ants rush to Gao Peng and inform him that a dragon's about to die down there. Without wasting a moment, Gao Peng tells Flamey, Dumby, Slicey, and the dragon's slaying chapter named White Paper to come with him along with 7 dragon ants. Everyone else is to stay on the cliff as backup because Gao is a little apprehensive at the power that was held in that last roar. As soon as the group lands at the base of the cliff, Slicey takes out a local monster, scaring away all of the others in the area. With the area clear, Gao Peng is ready to look for the dragon. The only problem is his stomach suddenly swells up to the point he looks 7 months pregnant. Wait, what? Gao Peng quickly excuses himself and heads off to a side road saying he needs a bathroom break before the others can see the state of his belly. Once he's by himself, he starts losing his cool and decides that if he suddenly gives birth to something here, he'll just have to lie and say he found it by coincidence. How is that your main concern right now? Get help. Right as he's panicking about becoming a laughing stock, a blue portal suddenly appears over his stomach and he's hit with an influx of both power and information. The skill he received from Dumby's promotion has just awakened within him. With this, his soul strength has increased massively as well. In his current state, he might as well sign a blood contract with the 7 dragon ants he brought down and test out his new space-time skill. After signing the contract with a lined-up group of dragon ants, Gao Peng tells them they'll be able to eat all they want while they're by his side. Then, he uses his new skill without warning to vanish one of the ants and freak out its siblings. While they panic, Gao Peng examines his pocket dimension inventory where he has a total of 100 storage slots. The familiars stored here are in a sort of stasis, so they won't suffer from being inside, but they won't grow at all while inside either. As he brings the dragon ant back out to join its siblings, Gao Peng decides to test the limits of this new skill and tells Flamey to fly him up to the top of the cliff. Goldie asks him if he's already done, to which he replies that he's just here for an experiment. Without any further explanation, he raises his arm and vanishes Stripey into his storage. Goldie loses his literal and figurative crap while Gao Peng continues examining the storage space. Stripey only takes up 1 slot, same as the dragon ant, so mass doesn't seem to be a factor in this skill's usage. Just as Gao Peng returns Stripey to the outside, he spots a whole new beast skittering down the cliff. It's a level 71 Overlord tier dragon ant with an iron dragon tail mutation. Gao Peng realizes it must be going for the dragon corpse and quickly rushes after it while telling Slicey, Dumby, and Flamey to follow him. At the bottom of the cliff, Gao Peng has a very close call when the dragon ant nearly spots him. Luckily, he manages to hide and mask his presence by vanishing all his familiars into the storage. From there, Gao Peng quietly sneaks after the Overlord dragon ant as it moves towards the location of the dragon corpse. The whole way there, he hears an intense battle up ahead and is hindered by the constant curtain of smoke. Once they finally get to the corpse, Gao Peng finds out that the corpse is that of a smoke dragon, which explains the constant smoke. Gao Peng notes that the dragon ants that have gathered to feast on the corpse are working together to drive away other monsters. Upon realizing that there are species that help their own, Gao Peng brings out one of his contracted dragon ants and instructs it on how to go up there and blend in. Sure enough, when the baby ant goes up to the corpse, the Overlord allows it to step up and eat its fill without any hostility. Can't blame him, that hungry face was adorable. Once the ant conks out from overeating, Gao Peng smiles and sends the next one forward. As his ants continue their feasting without a worry in the world, Gao Peng surveys the scene. The dragon ants evidently have a very strong sense of kinship towards their own, but they're equally hostile to any that aren't of their kind. Just off to the side, an ape monster has had its arms slashed just for stealing a handful of meat. Talk about brutal. Strangely enough, none of the monsters have even gone near the smoke dragon's head, which is where the dragon crystal is stored, inside the brain. You can only wonder if these monsters just don't eat crystals or something else is amiss that he's not aware of. Roughly 3 days have passed since the consumption of the smoked dragon's flesh, and Gao Peng is pleased to see that not only have 2 of his dragon ant babies gotten bigger, but 1 has straight up mutated. Dragon Ant 6 now has the ability to release smoke that it can manipulate for both offensive and defensive purposes. While the other dragon ants are geeking out over their awesome brother, a massive roar suddenly shakes the whole valley and turns the skies blood red. Gao Peng is highly concerned by this, but the dragon ants are even more terrified as they can sense whatever is coming. Sure enough, just a moment later, the cause of the sudden chaos shows itself as it flies past them. It's the ancient Blood Rage Dragon, which is a level 91 quasi-god tier beast. Yeah, the power creep is more real than in a gacha game. Gao Peng is freaked out by the insane level of power displayed on the creature's status window, to say the least. Even in its current state of being heavily injured, it makes the Overlord tier dragon ant from before look like an infant. Hang on, what the hell was able to cause heavy injuries to this thing? Still in shock from the dragon's appearance, Gao Peng doesn't think to ask that question and just rushes after it. Why? No, seriously. Why? That's horror movie level bad decision making. As they race after the dragon, the group lose it before long. They do come across a puddle of the dragon's blood that dripped out from its injury. Before Gao Peng can stop him, the oldest of his dragon ants rushes to the puddle and declares that he will test the waters for them despite its corrosive nature. A moment later, he's throat deep in the puddle of blood, yelling that it hurts, but it's so good. Whoa, that's a little too raunchy, pal. We're a family-friendly channel here. As the dragon ant continues slurping up the dragon's life juice, Gao Peng tells his other familiars to be on high alert. Blood of such high quality, as this is sure to attract plenty of other monsters as well. Sure enough, Flammy finds himself fighting off a wolf not long after that as it tries to get to the puddle. Luckily, the Firebird is more than a match for it, and takes it out with some blazing feather projectiles. Over by the puddle, the feasting dragon ant has fallen unconscious after just a few mouthfuls of the stuff, making Gao Peng wonder if there's alcohol in it. Did he just get stupider this chapter somehow or what? Gao Peng figures that more monsters will show up for the blood sooner than later. They may not be small fry like that wolf. He tells Dumby to grab the dragon ant so they can get out of here. Why not just use that storage skill? He really is being dumb right now for some reason. Meanwhile, the ancient Blood Rage quasi-god level 91 Ultra Instinct Supersonic Saiyan 5 God Demon Dragon has reached its destination in the valley's depths. What? The names are already stupid. Why shouldn't I make them stupider? Here, the dragon calls out to another beast named Deep Meditation and tells him to come out. See, stupid names. Right on cue, a skeletal dragon possessing a blue flame claws its way out of the ground and starts bantering with the ancient dragon, as it claims he's here to die and let his corpse nourish the valley's monsters. Naturally, the Blood Rage Dragon rages at him for his insinuation and tells him he's just here to get healed. Over in the distance, Gao Peng notices a black fog overtaking the environment, confusing him at the sudden change. What's even more worrying is that just breathing in the fog seems to be fatal based on the reaction of the small monster on the wall. Back with the bickering dragons, the skeletal one is now ranting at the Blood Rage Dragon for disrespecting the rules of the valley, which state a dragon may only enter when it's dying. The Blood Rage Dragon, on the other hand, couldn't give a crap about that and just demands that the skeleton heal him since they've known each other for over 10,000 years. Holy crap, they're old. After a bit more insulting back and forth between the two, the Blood Rage Dragon agrees to donate some flesh in return for being healed. Once he's healed, though, he provides what amounts to a single grain of rice worth of his flesh, annoying the skeleton. When it starts taunting him and using a nickname about his stinginess, the Blood Rage Dragon gives in and coughs up some blood-red chunks before leaving. Over at Gao Peng's location, the chunk of red rolls to a stop in front of Dumby, and the dragon ant in his grasp comically rolls onto the ground to chomp into it. Gao Peng can only stare at the system window that identifies it as a fragment of the Blood Rage Dragon's heart in shock at how lucky it gotten. This whole chapter is so stupid. And so, with the consumption of the Ultra Super Mega Uber God Rage Dragon's blood and a chunk of his heart, the eldest dragon ant baby has turned into the eldest dragon ant baby, but with a rage dragon skin. That's right, we've got microtransactions in here now. Gao Peng, for one, is elated with this evolution. Before now, Stripey was their only tank, but he's too large to be a practical frontline tank. With DA number 1's new abilities, the hole in their formation is filled now. Just then, some sort of white projectile comes crashing towards Gao Peng from above. No, Not that kind. Panicking, he quickly sucks up all but one of the dragon ants into his storage and makes a break for it. As he's running away, he has Smoky Ant release the smoke from his new ability to cover their retreat. After taking cover further up, Gao Peng works out that the cave they're in is more than 30 meters deep with a downward twisting path. Unless their pursuer comes in, they won't be able to spot Gao Peng at all, especially with the dragon's smoke in play. Right as he's thinking this, an incredible commotion begins outside that shakes the very foundation of the cave, startling Gao Peng. 10 minutes later, things have finally settled down and Gao Peng wonders if more monsters aren't going to show up. After deliberating in his head for a bit, he decides to go out and check out the situation. What he finds, though, is far from what he expected. All that's there is the mangled body of a great white dragon, bloodied and mutilated from its battle. Believing it to be dead, Gao Peng approaches the dragon's body in hopes of checking the state of its core crystal. Right at that moment, the dragon's eye shoots open and it stares down at him with a level of authority that terrifies him. As Gao Peng backs off in fear, the dragon suddenly speaks up and says to come forth and eat him. Well, that's rude. At least take him out to dinner first. Naturally, Gao Peng is utterly shocked by the dragon's words. He can only wonder if this is a joke or the dragon genuinely hit its head and became stupid. As he takes a closer look, though, he realizes that definitely isn't the case. This monster is completely and utterly serious. Deciding to humor the dragon, Gao Peng tells the dragon ant still with him to go forward and get closer to the white dragon. When the little ant stays behind his legs in fear, the dragon takes matters into its own hands. Quite literally, it rips its own eyes straight out of the socket and holds it out to the dragon ant, telling him to eat it. All he asks is that he avenge the dragon in the future by killing some demons if he has the chance. Eyes going wide at the opportunity before it, the ant chomps into the eyeball without a second thought, completely forgetting its previous fear. As the dragon ant is chowing down, a ferocious red-furred beast comes onto the scene and leaps for the ant. The white dragon has been watching with his remaining eye, though, and he bats away the beast with a quick flick of its tail. As the beast scurries away, the dragon suddenly tosses a glimmering crystal at Gao Peng and tells him to take this too. Gao Peng is shocked to see what he's pretty sure is the dragon's core crystal. The white dragon simply says it's better for him to have it than the ones who have put him in this state. As the demons he's speaking of start showing up on the scene, the white dragon tells Gao Peng to leave now while he still can. Taking the dragon's advice, Gao Peng tells Silly to store away the core crystal before grabbing the dragon ant and racing off into the cave. As they run from the scene of the white dragon's last stand, Gao Peng comes to a startling revelation: the white dragon's request to avenge it. The severely injured blood rage dragon, the name of this valley, even the way monsters are bred here with the bodies of dying dragons. The fact that they've been in this valley for 3 months now and yet some unseen force has been maintaining a chaotic order from the background. There's probably a dragon maintaining that order at the center of this valley. That's probably the one who tossed the chunk of the blood rage dragon's heart to him before. That's why he's never met a monster above the overlord tier in his whole time here. This valley isn't a graveyard of dragons. No, it's a breeding farm for them. With this revelation, a lot of things start making sense to Gao Peng. These of which is still the fact he's seen no monsters above the overlord tier here. They must all leave the valley once they reach that level. As for Dragon Ant number 2, his consumption of the white dragon's eye has granted him an ability called the Daylight Aurora Pupil, which can see through darkness and even through objects eventually. Gao Peng is amused by the fact that the little guy is still enjoying his meal without a worry while he's freaking out about the valley's truth. As for the new ability, it's not really useful in terms of offense, but it'll have plenty of uses outside of combat. That aside, it's about time they leave the valley. Before he does that though, Gao Peng has to figure out what to do with the rest of the Dragon Ant kids, since he doesn't want to keep that many of them around. Suddenly, he has a eureka moment and sets his plan into motion. Later, the overlord Dragon Ant is relaxing outside its home and enjoying the nice weather for once. It's one of the rare days he can take off and have a good time. That is at least, until he suddenly senses a presence nearby. Instantly going on full alert, he calls out for them to show themselves. With all monsters above the overlord tier already leaving this place, the Bears challenge him. Just as he says this, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 7th Dragon Ant kids pop out of a nearby bush and start chittering at him. The overlord is confused and asks just whose babies these are, with a sweat drop going down his head. That's when they decide to give him the fright of his life as they start yelling out that he's their daddy. Yikes, that's not what you want to hear randomly. The overlord is pretty chill about it though and remembers his own kids who he enjoyed raising so much. Now that it's almost time for them to move out, he entertains the idea of asking his wife to make a new nest when they leave. Putting those thoughts aside, he turns to the kids and tells them not to call him that since he's not actually their father. In response, the kids start bawling and crying out that their daddy doesn't want them anymore. Terrified that his wife might hear them, the Overlord begs them to stop yelling. Unfortunately for him, it's a little too late for that. The Overlord's wife comes out of their cave upon hearing the commotion outside and comes upon a scene that enrages her. Her husband telling a group of children that he's not their father, and the children insisting that their mother asked them to come find him before she left. As they beg him not to turn them away, the wife appears behind the Overlord with righteous fury burning in her eyes. He can only plead with his wife to hear him out first, hoping to stay in her good graces. Instead, his wife ignores him and turns to the children before asking them where their parents are. When the children start crying and say that their parents abandoned them, the Overlord wife's motherly instincts flare up and she instantly embraces them. Just like that, they got new family. From the bushes to the side, Gao Peng just watches with a thumbs up and a crap-eating grin. Oh, that is just devious. Later, above the Death Dragon Valley, Gao Peng is facing one of the rare dilemmas that come with having too many familiars. He can't decide which one to promote first. Before he has to make a decision, Stripey interrupts to tell him there's a monster hiding in the soil nearby. At Gao Peng's instruction, Stripey forces it out of the ground and reveals a firetail mink toad. As the toad lays on its belly knocked out, Gao Peng sees its level 4 Earth Flame skill and tells Flamey to absorb the fire. The firebird does so and proceeds to, for some reason, break wind right in Goldie's face. The action results in Goldie's untimely passing from sheer disgust. Rest in peace, Goldie, you died the death of a true warrior. While Flamey rages at the toad for its fire making him gassy, Gao Peng tells him to calm down. The way Flamey's fire absorption skill works can be totally abused in combination with this toad. They can literally use it as a power bank of sorts and have Flamey constantly absorb its fire. And hey, if it ever runs out, they'll just butcher and eat the thing. Yeah, that's not messed up at all. While all that's going on, Dazi's living his best life over in the unknown void where he's just floating around, relaxing and eating. Man, I've never been so jealous of a literal centipede. While he's floating around, Dazi suddenly has the realization that he hasn't seen any food spawn in quite a while. Just then, a spatial rift opens up right in front of him. The second he gets close, Dazi recognizes the smell coming from it as that of Earth, and he tries to dash through it. Unfortunately, the limit on Earth doesn't allow a monster as high level as him to enter. On the sidelines, the voices in the void's darkness discuss this matter and argue over what to do with Dazi lest his own growth here outpaces the growth of his world itself. One of them suggests sending him to another world, but that's shot down as being against the rules. When Dazi starts crying about never being able to see Gao Peng again, one of the voices speaks up. It says that the rules may be rigid, but they are not. And just like that, another rift opens up next to Dazi. Dazi hesitantly pokes a single stinger through the new rift and is surprised to see it go through without any trouble. Curiosity getting the best of him, he pokes his head through to check out the other side, only to see a massive ocean that stretches as far as the eye can see. Worried that he might drown, Dazi decides to just retreat back into the void and wait for another chance to return to Earth. Unfortunately, the voices from within the void aren't having that and they kick him out of the rift and into the ocean. As the rift closes, Dazi looks up at it and cusses up a storm. He has to abandon that in favor of survival, though as a moment later, a giant fish tries to attack him from below. Annoyed by the low-class beast trying to get bite of him, Dazi lets loose a blast of lightning that completely fries the fish. One tray of fries and we've got ourselves some primo fish and chips here. After that's dealt with, Dazi angrily flies off into the distance, unaware of the other fish watching him go. Over with the others, Gao Peng suddenly senses an overbearing presence. He worries that the monster from the bottom of the valley has caught up to them, not realizing that what he's sensing is Dazi and his connection being restored. Turning to the others, he quickly has them get into formation to fend off an attack. As soon as they're all prepped, Gao Peng calls out to catch their attacker off guard and attack it as soon as it appears. 10 minutes later, nothing has happened. When Flamey tells him there aren't any monsters chasing them, Gao Peng decides to pretend it was all planned in an attempt to preserve his dignity. Spoilers, it does not work. After putting that whole incident behind them, Gao Peng decides to head east now since there are only labyrinths in the south. Hell, he might even get a decent water-type familiar out of the ocean there. Thanks to his new storage space skill, he doesn't have to worry about keeping such a familiar inside water at all times. With that decided, he sits in a chair on Strepy's back and praises the treasure-sniffing mouse for finding more wolfberry grass today. With this, he can now kickstart the evolution of Xiao Hua, Dumby's daughter. She's level 30 now and of excellent grade with a deep interest in reading and studying. Gao Peng figures there's no time like the present and preps to promote her today. He grabs the tools necessary from Silly and gets to work on preparing the necessary solution. Once that's done, he hands it over to Xiao Hua in her studying area and tells her to drink it. As soon as she does, the gorilla collapses to the ground and starts writhing in pain. Gao Peng has to hold Dumby back so he doesn't interrupt and tells the monster that he can't protect her forever. Luckily, the process doesn't last much longer and Xiao Hua comes out of it with a brand new pair of wings. With this evolutionary pathway, Xiao Hua now has the longest lifespan of all the other monsters of her same level. Since she's got no combat potential, this is the best choice for her. Suddenly, Gao Peng feels the same intense sensation from before and starts wondering if he's going crazy. Meanwhile, Dazi is busy fleeing over the ocean from an angry mother beast. As he's fleeing, he yells out at the mother for being mad when he only ate one egg. Oh wow, that's messed up, man. As the beast closes in on him, Dazi can only scream out for Gao Peng to save him. As he continues fleeing from the giant sea monster, Dazi yells back at it to stop chasing him since he already returned his egg yolk. Is that some kind of pun I'm too saying to get? Rather than listening to a word he has to say, the beast just lets out a guttural roar and lunges toward him. Dazi just barely makes it through the several slash attacks in his way without getting hit and decides to use his eye of the heart to read its thoughts. Unfortunately, the only thought in the beast's mind is to eat Dazi. Realizing the beast has no intention of ever letting up on him, Dazi lets loose a torrent of lightning right there in the middle of the ocean. With the beast stunned for a few precious seconds, Dazi runs like all hell away from it. Well, flies actually, but you get it. Smugly, he turns his head to taunt the beast for chasing him. Instead of mouthing off, he gets to see the terrifying image of the beast's maw wide open as it closes in on him. As Dazi yells out wondering why it didn't work and begging for Gao Peng's help, the man himself is at the seashore examining the ocean. As he's watching the water, he suddenly hears Dazi's thoughts about how hungry he is. Exasperated with himself, Gao Peng believes he's imagining stuff out of how much he misses Dazi. Flamey and Goldie do their best to comfort their master, but just then, he hears the centipede's voice again. Realizing this can't be a coincidence, Gao Peng sends out a thought, asking where Dazi is. Sure enough, this works and the centipede dragon is overjoyed to finally get a reply after so long. He starts blabbering about how much he's missed Gao Peng and that he's been getting chased by a huge worm for 4 straight days now. Hold up, what? Dumbfounded by what he's hearing, Gao Peng tells Dazi they're at the seashore and asks where he is. Dazi replies that he's in the middle of the ocean and has no idea which way land is. Since there are no real landmarks out at sea, Gao Peng tells Dazi to just keep going straight till he eventually reaches land. Additionally, he asks what type the monster chasing him is and learns it's a gigantic water-type silver worm. Gao Peng advises him to hurry towards land as the monster will be weaker outside water and might not even follow him onto shore. With the mental call over for now, Gao Peng instructs his familiars to split up and fan out to find Dazi faster. Just half an hour later, good old Dragon Ant number 2 is able to spot Dazi in the distance with his overpowered eyes. Gao Peng has Flamey shoot a fireball into the sky so Dazi can see which way they are and come towards them. Sure enough, this works and the centipede is soon clearly visible to them all. Gao Peng is relieved to see him safe and sound and figures the worm must have stopped chasing him since there's more of them out here. Before reaching them though, Dazi turns around and fires a massive storm of electricity down at the worm as a final screw you. Gao Peng can only watch the proceedings and realize the worm would have left Dazi alone days ago if he stopped egging it on. Now that things are calmer, Gao Peng can't help but wonder how Dazi grew so many wings on his back in just 6 months. Dazi, for his part, just starts groaning about how long he's been without food and demands that Silly provide him with several boxes of mealworms. What no one else but Stripey spots in time is that the worm is back. The mountainous behemoth of a spider quickly gets in the way and shields the others from the worm's incoming attack. What's most shocking about the whole situation to Gao Peng is that Stripey actually takes notable damage from this single attack. Gao Peng is deeply concerned by the destructive potential of this thing and tells Stripey to suppress it before it uses its surroundings to its advantage. Stripey leaps into the water and onto the worm, but it just escapes and brings forth a super dense concentration of the water element to shoot at Stripey. Gao Peng watches in horror as Stripey takes more damage now than he ever has in all of his time since evolving combined. Confused about just what the hell Dazi has provoked, Gao Peng checks the beast's stat window and is hit with instant regret. They're facing a level 74 Overlord tier Deep Sea Silver winged three-eyed snake. They're so screwed. Floating behind his head, Da Zi innocently asks Gao Peng if he messed up. Yes. Just yes. So badly. Gao Peng just stares at him with frustration before realizing he must have leveled up since his appearance has changed. Upon viewing his status window, Gao Peng's eyes practically pop out of their sockets in complete shock. Not only is Da Zi now at Emperor tier as a level 69. Heh, nice. But he also has multiple skills over level 5 and a mythical grade along with a named 24 winged lightning sky dragon. The stats are actually more impressive than those of the Deep Sea Silver winged three-eyed snake. Gao Peng angrily grabs Da Zi and tells him to get out there to help Stripey fight that damn worm. He's forced to bonk Da Zi straight in the head and insists that he's stronger now when the centipede tries to weasel out of it. Unable to argue against Gao Peng, Da Zi leaps into action and lets loose a skill called Explosive Lightning at his suggestion. Shockingly, this goes straight through the water barrier pulled up by the worm despite it having the environmental advantage. Dumby quickly uses the opening to close in on the snake and deliver a powerful blow, but the worm moves just in time to make it hit its scales instead. With that, Dumby is blown back to land. However, he's able to activate his dark flames all over the worm's body now and does so without hesitation. Gao Peng realizes that the flames are actually burning the seawater on the snake's scales, rather than its own elemental energy, and interestingly observes the effect. Meanwhile, the giant worm unleashes a trio of extremely powerful water elemental tornadoes. In the midst of these, it dives underwater in an attempt to escape. Gao Peng sees this and orders Dumby, Da Zi, and Stripey to go stop it while promising that he can handle the tornadoes. Sure enough, Gao Peng does have a plan to handle the tornadoes, and that plan is named Goldie. Since the Twisters are an elemental attack, Goldie's Forbidden Domain ability completely cancels them out and leaves the two totally safe. A full hour later, the fight is still going, albeit in a very terrible state. Stripey is heavily injured while Dumby and the giant worm are both moderately so. Gao Peng watches from atop Flamey up in the sky and thinks about how this would have been over if it were any other monster. Regardless of its durability though, it has no way to escape now. Sure enough, the next flying kick Dumby hits it with is the one that blasts the worm unconscious and into the ocean. Gao Peng is celebrating the victory of his familiars over an overlord and thinks about how insanely strong Da Zi will be now with just a bit more experience. Back on Earth, the ancient tribes that have resurfaced clearly don't see Earthlings as compatriots, so Gao Peng's familiars will become targets if he's not strong enough. With that in mind, he has to promote both their grades and levels in equal measure to give them an edge over all the other familiars. More importantly, he's super excited by the idea of using his new storage skill as a loophole to smuggle higher tier monsters than what are allowed into Earth. As for the aftermath of their battle itself, Stripey has severe injuries, but the Earth's elemental energy is healing him as fast as possible. Meanwhile, Dumby's able to heal just by absorbing the ghouls he's resurrected, which even Gao Peng thinks is pretty broken. And finally, it's time for Gao Peng to get to work with the altar imp he has decided to call Dark Child. A name which Dark Child really doesn't like and tries to convince Gao Peng not to use since he's literally just the altar's avatar. Unfortunately, he achieves absolutely zero success with that, and even Goldie jumps in with his 2 cents about how that name is totally cool. Hang in there, Dark Child. And so, our hero and his pseudo family spend the next 6 months together, honing their skills and growing stronger than ever. It has now been a full year since Gao Peng has been training in the Black Fog world, and let's just say it shows. Daddy? Sorry. Daddy? Sorry, I am. A little ways ahead of him, Goldie breaks through the surface of the water and drags a massive fish up with him for their dinner. Gao Peng just fondly berates him for being so eager to test out his skills when they already have food. Deciding to be nice, he tells Goldie to clean and slice the fish so they can have it tonight. While the buff duck does that, it's time for us to get an exposition dump. Gao Peng's familiars have been able to grow at an incredible rate over these past 6 months thanks to Dark Child and his power-up pills. He still doesn't have a water-type familiar, and his current soul power is only enough to sign a contract with an Emperor tier monster on top of all his existing contracts. Gao Peng knows he'll have to head pretty deep into the sea to meet a high-grade Emperor tier monster, since even King tiers are pretty rare here on the surface. To that end, he tells the others that they'll be exploring the deep sea after dinner. Later, Gao Peng is flying over the ocean atop Da Zi, while Flamey follows alongside them. Eventually, they come across a strange island with a very shallow water level and little to no plants. Plus, the only inhabitants seem to be level 45 Qingbai wind birds. Between the safe environment and convenient location of the thing, Gao Peng decides they'll use this island as a resting spot for a few nights. The following night, Gao Peng and Goldie silently spy on one of the wind birds as it wakes and goes towards a cave. Goldie reports that the bird entered the cave at night and exited in the morning looking incredibly tired. Sounds like a booty call to me. Goldie, however, thinks that the cave is a treasure hideout of some kind, whatever that's supposed to be. The pair of equally goofy numbskulls sneak into the cave on their tiptoes to avoid detection. Once they're inside, Gao Peng senses something strange and asks Goldie if he's seen anything suspicious. When the duck answers in the negative, Gao Peng decides whatever is in the dark is highly well hidden to fool even him. Rather than in the dark, the danger turns out to be right under their noses. One of the floating bubbles bursts and releases a mutated seaweed monster. As it rushes towards Gao Peng, Goldie jumps into the way and takes the attack instead. Unfortunately for him, the seaweed is far too flexible for Goldie to be able to break it. It wraps around him instead, holding him hostage while Gao Peng is powerless to save him. Well, almost. He's already prepared countermeasures for such a situation, though. Countermeasures in the form of Flamey and his burning breath that Goldie's grown to be used to. As Flamey blasts him with as much fire as possible, the seaweed is burnt away despite having a fire-resistance skill. While Goldie argues with Flamey over cooking him alive, Gao Peng examines the seaweed. Its flame resistance level only being level 3 is why Flamey was able to just burn through it and cause damage anyways. Suddenly, Gao Peng hears menacing sounds from up ahead and watches as several pairs of glowing eyes appear from the dark. Without wasting a single moment on hesitation, he orders Flamey to fry the crap out of the dark end of the cave. As Flamey carries out that order, one particular monster manages to break through his flames and make a path for other water types behind it. Goldie is ready to jump back into the fight though and unleashes a barrage of furious jabs, hooks, kicks, and more, resulting in a dead crab and a blocked-off cave. At his request, Flamey then uses his fire to barbecue the ever-living crap out of their prey. Half an hour later, the group are enjoying the fruits, or rather the fish, of their labor when Dazi shows up, lured over by the smell of food. Gao Peng tells him to forget about it since he didn't contribute to beating these monsters at all, and tells Goldie to move them outside first. The buff baldy of a duck is carrying out an oyster when it makes a strange noise. He and Gao Peng give each other a knowing look before Goldie forces the thing open with brute strength. As soon as he gets it open though, the thing inside rushes away too fast to be seen. It might be too fast to be seen, but it's not too fast to be messed with though. Gao Peng casually sticks his leg out in the path of the moving object and causes it to roll to a stop. As they get closer to it, Goldie picks up the ordinary-looking fish and grins as he thinks of the 500 credits he gets on average for such a catch. As the fish stares at him with unfettered hatred and rage, Goldie comments that it must be worth even more than the usual. That's when the fish decides to finally speak up and start cursing the crap out of Goldie and Gao Peng. Well, Gao Peng is pretty sure it's mostly meant for him since the fish is speaking in Mandarin Chinese, his language. Unaffected and even annoyed by the fish's anger, Goldie flicks it hard enough to make the fish's head spin. In response, it gets even angrier and starts ranting about the usual, "Do you know who I am?" crap and blah blah blah. Meanwhile, Gao Peng takes the opportunity to study the fish's status window and finds that its name, level, and grade are all unavailable for him to view. Gao Peng knows thanks to his experience with Frosty that this means the fish is in a sealed state. You can only imagine how powerful it'll be when fully restored if it's at level 50, even in this weakened state. As the fish notices Gao Peng staring at it with stars in his eyes, it starts cussing him out too. In response, Goldie takes offense and gets in front of him, ready to fight. Gao Peng stops him though and tells him the fish is trying to agitate him on purpose. Turning to the fish, Gao Peng blatantly tells it that he's looking for a water-type monster to contract, and even if it's useless in combat, he'd still like to contract it since it's so cute. This of course frustrates the fish, who insists that it's evil and ferocious. This only cements Gao Peng's decision though and ends with him asking Goldie to take the fish outside for a little heart-to-heart. Totally not a torture session. Later, Goldie returns with the fish in a highly bruised and battered state. Gao Peng keeps telling it how amazing it is despite its insistence to the contrary. The fish tells him it knows the location of some of the highest grade monsters in the ocean and will help Gao Peng find a satisfactory one to contract with. Gao Peng sticks to his guns though. He tells the fish that he understands its hesitance, but he doesn't want any other familiar but it. Instead of letting him go, Gao Peng offers to help the fish recover its lost grade. Either that or get buried in a hole. Yikes. Not much of a choice now, is that? The fish feels very much the same as it just stares at him angrily. Suddenly, Gao Peng places his palm on the fish and closes his eyes. A moment later, he's inside the creature's consciousness. Here, he sees a dead-looking endless ocean with just one small area having any sense of life to it. That's when the fish enters its consciousness as well and bellows at Gao Peng angrily for sneaking in when its guard was down. Gao Peng just cockily asks if it wants to try hitting him with lightning. On the inside, he's cool as a cucumber because he knows the fish's soul power is lower than ever right now. So much so that it may even be less than his own. When he offers to contract with the fish one more time, it rethinks its options and asks Gao Peng if he can truly help recover its grade. With a bit of sweet talking from Gao Peng, the decision is made and their contract is signed. With that done, some of the unviewable stuff on Gao Peng's system window shows itself. It's the requirements for the fish's promotion to perfect grade, and let's just say they're far from being reasonable. Gao Peng can only scream at the several tons of materials he's going to have to dish out to evolve the damn fish. 3 years later, a busy bar can be seen in the Yuzhou area. A bunch of men in here are discussing the state of the world's monster trainer scene and how the strongest trainers are those of the ancient tribes when an older gentleman speaks up. He tells them all for putting down the people of Earth and encourages them to walk their own path. He also says that Ji Hunwu and Gao Peng are the strongest trainers of their time, but this seems to draw the ire of one of the men. He tells the older guy that he agrees that Ji Hunwu is strong, but he refuses to acknowledge Gao Peng. Instantly, the cocky guy's friend grabs him by the arm and tells him to shut up. Here at Yuzhou, everyone should know that the Southern Sky Group are the ones on top. Even the guards are staring at him with poorly hidden anger. An older man speaks to a seated young man and tells him he'll send someone to punish the offenders at once. Instead, the young man, now revealed to be Gao Peng, tells him to let them have their freedom of speech. Let's be real, we all knew it was him. Though he says this on the outside, Gao Peng quietly signals Flowery to place a curse on the two guys that'll make them sick for a few days. Talking smack about him behind his back is one thing, but how is he supposed to excuse such disrespect right to his face? Gao Peng is more than a little surprised to find that the limit on Earth still hasn't been released or even raised in the time he's been gone. Luckily, the loophole he thought of regarding his storage space worked out after all, and he can smuggle over his familiars. As for said familiars, Xiao Hua is now even more different than before and always wears a robe. Most of the others are busy with more training or other important tasks. The fish he contracted, now known as Fishy, is acting as a spy in the Fa world's ocean. It's thanks to him that they've been able to advance so much. As he's pondering over all that, the drive ends and Gao Peng arrives back home at last. Only it's way different than he remembers. After the shock he suffered upon seeing the new entrance, Gao Peng enters the Southern Sky Group HQ to meet Grandpa Ji. After a quick hug, the old man instantly tells Gao Peng to come in for his favorite pork rib soup that he's prepared. Inside, Gao Peng is shocked to see Bei Qingyan lounging around in casual clothes. She seems happy to see him but tells him she'll leave so he can have a proper reunion with his grandpa. The old man in question is quick to tell her to stay for dinner, though since they already know each other. At dinner, Grandpa G barely stays for a few minutes before scurrying away with a mischievous smile. Everyone needs a wingman like Grandpa G. With him gone, the dinner table is a bit awkward, so Gao Peng tries to strike up some conversation. When talking about Yuzhou's food turns out to be a dead end, Gao Peng comments on how Bei's face has gotten rounder since their last meeting. Holy crap, how do you fumble that bad? As anyone with a brain would expect, Bei gets upset and leaves, telling Gao Peng to enjoy the rest of his meal. From the spot where he's spying, Grandpa G can only be mad at how clueless his grandson is and how he'll never get any grandkids at this rate. Sometime later, Gao Peng joins his grandpa as he gives a speech to the students of his high school. One meant to inspire them to do their best at this year's National High School Championship. Not only will the top three have their pick of a commander-tier familiar from the Southern Sky Group, Gao Peng will personally customize anything for the first-place winner. Later in the principal's office, Gao Peng asks what the hell the National High School Championship even is. I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory. Come on, man. She explains that it's an annual tournament jointly organized by the government and various top forces of the Huaxia region. This year will be the second one. Gao Peng is quick to note how strange it is that they placed 8th last year when they're literally one of the organizing committees. She explains that the Huaxia Junwu High School that took first place last year and several others just have very deep connections to the military and other influential forces. Gao Peng can't help but believe that the government has become a shell of itself over these past 3 years. She assures Gao that they didn't place low for a lack of talent or quality though. It's simply because they supported their students in terms of educational resources instead of giving them familiars right off the bat. Gao Peng quickly comes to a conclusion about this method and tells his grandpa that he totally understands. It's a great idea to raise trainers like this, so they're well trained without becoming over-reliant on their familiars for everything. Rather than telling him he's right, Grandpa G angrily yells at Gao Peng that he doesn't understand anything. A confused Gao Peng is then subjected to his grandpa's ranting about how rough things have been in regards to the Northern Frost tribe and how much trouble it was to get Bei Qingyan here only for him to open his big mouth and offend her. Gao Peng is quick to defend himself and tells Ji that he doesn't even know if she's interested in him like that. Plus, it'd be really awkward for their friendship if she rejected him or something. Grandpa Ji just angrily tells him that that's nonsense. Of course she doesn't have feelings for him. Those don't just come out of nowhere. They have to be brought out. He was way smoother than this when he got with Gao's grandma, and his father was the same with his mother. Weird flex, but alright, Gramps. Rather than listen to his grandpa talk more about romance, Gao Peng decides to bail when he isn't looking and runs for the hills. He calls behind him that he's decided to lead the academy's team in this year's championship, so he's going to go prep for that. Later, Gao Peng arrives in one of the gardens on the property to meet his sister Tong Tong after so long. Whoa, I forgot she even exists. While teasingly petting her softie, Gao Peng begins asking her for a favor. Because of the several unfavorable forces making moves recently, he'd like her to work as Tianga Academy's gatekeeper. While Gao Peng starts listing off benefits like just delegating the job to her familiars and building her a villa next to the campus, Tong Tong agrees without much convincing. In her own words, it's not like she has anything better to do. Right after she agrees, Gao Peng slightly startles upon sensing something in the distance. When Tong Tong asks what's wrong, he just says that some people aren't too happy about his return. That night, Gao Peng walks the outdoor walkways of the group HQ, using himself as bait for the attackers he already knew would come for him. Sure enough, a spider familiar attacks him right on time, causing Gao to dodge out of the way and springboard off a soon-ruined wall. As he examines the spider's movement patterns, Sister Tong Tong's Softie shows up to help him out. As Softie fights off the level 55 Moonshadow spider, it decides to cut its losses and run away. Unwilling to accept that, Gao Peng brings out his treasure-sniffing rat and tells him to find that spider's trainer via scent. As long as he doesn't kill anyone, everything is fair game. The rat fires off a salute at its master and rushes off to complete the task given to it. In an unknown location in the nearby forest, a robed man is quietly lamenting the failure of his assassination attempt on Gao Peng just now. He's preparing to flee the area lest he be found out when his dog familiar is suddenly cleaved into two by the treasure-hunting rodent. Well, looks like someone got quite the upgrade. The would-be assailant is just as confused since his info on the rat is from before the Fog World training. As such, he's unprepared when said rat uppercuts his jaw shut and sends him to Dreamland. Back at Southern Sky HQ, Gao Peng can tell from the spider's agitated movement that its master has been caught. The spider tries to go transparent and use its enhanced speed to get a clean hit on Softie, but Gao Peng sees right through it. He warns Softie in time for the cat to dodge. In the next couple of seconds, the spider is seconds too late to see the danger coming in at it from the sky above. Flaming is shown up to the scene and utterly crushed the spider in one fell swoop. Gao Peng takes a closer look at the spider that's clinging to life by a thread. Seeing as how it just tried to assassinate him though, he's not feeling particularly merciful and tosses a rock at its head, finishing it off. As he's turning away from that, the treasure-sniffing mouse gets back, dragging the spider's trainer behind him by the foot. Gao Peng just calls out Flowery and decides to heal this fool so they can wring some information out of him. By the time he's awake, Gao Peng is at the end of his rope in terms of patience. He tells the man to get to talking about who sent him and how he knew where Gao Peng would be. To make sure the threat in his words is clear, he brings out a mace to intimidate the man. When he starts whining about how this is illegal, Gao Peng can't help but be amused and call him out for being childish. Didn't me just try to carry out an assassination? Illegal my butt. Just a few moments later, Gao Peng has extracted most of the info he needs. This guy, Tong Cheng, was sent by the Kushan group to investigate the strength of their candidates for the national championship. The only reason he decided to pull an assassination attempt on Gao Peng was as a bonus since he was here anyway. There's just one problem. Gao Peng doesn't believe that pile of crap for a second, and Tong Cheng refuses to say anything further. Seeing that it's time to resort to drastic measures, Gao Peng calls out Brainy and has him get to work. Moments later, the living brain has extracted the memories of the assailant and shares all the relevant info with Gao Peng. He was actually sent here to eliminate the familiars and the 5 representatives they've registered for the championship, Stormcloud Sparrow in particular. Gao Peng realizes this means they have a spy since Grandpa G was keeping that familiar as a secret trump card and very few people even knew about it. Plus, the assailant knew where Tong Tong's house was and when he'd be there. Gao Peng had originally planned to just coach his team through a fair and clean run of the championship, but things seemed too complicated for that to be possible now. The next day, the 5 representatives from Gao Peng's academy gather at the mountain behind his villa at his request. The group kills some time talking to each other about their new coach and all his achievements before he finally shows up. The entrance to his lab opens up with a loud rumble and kicks up a cloud of dust as Gao Peng invites the students in. As they're stepping in, Gao Peng explains that he wanted them to just have fun and get some good experience at the championship initially. With the most recent developments though, he wants them to win it now. Now fully inside his lab, Gao Peng gives them the cold hard truth that expecting to win with their current familiars is a pipe dream, if even that. In order to help them accept this, he'll be having them spar with just one of the subordinate parasitic beasts that lives on one of his familiars. While the boys are a bit apprehensive about it, torn between how unimpressive it sounds and the fact that there's an obvious catch, Cao Huan steps forward to accept without hesitation. Gao Peng can see why she was chosen to be the trainer for Stormcloud Sparrow. With that, he snaps his finger and calls out Beiji, one of the mutated orange trees from on top of Stripey. Now an adult, Beiji is easily near 3 meters tall and very intimidating. As the boys stare at the beast in awe and speculate on how this is possible, one of them unknowingly hits the nail on the head by asking if Gao Peng has a familiar the size of a mountain. That aside, Gao Peng goes on to inform them that this beast is a very low level one, being only level 50. Plus, it's not even a combat type. If they can beat this beast, he'll let them be eligible to compete in the championship. 2 of the boys instantly send their Iron-Boned Saber-Toothed Tiger and Iron-Winged Armored Paladin to take on Beiji. Unfortunately for them, Beiji takes out their familiars with barely any effort at all. He knocks away the tiger and traps the paladin in a tight wooden prison, leaving Gao Peng to stare down at them sinisterly with just one thing to say: let's have some fun. The end, for now.